hope the other two
In the mid-1980s, Greyhound was facing a problem. The biggest bus company in America, once a proud symbol of long-distance travel, was beginning to look old. Airlines were stealing passengers with faster flights. Highways were filled with private cars. Even Amtrak was growing as an option. Greyhound needed something bold, something that would grab attention, something that would make people fall in love with bus travel again. That's when the idea of the Neoplan Double Decker was born. It wasn't just a bus, it was a statement. Imagine a giant rolling tower of steel and glass taller than anything else on the road. 2 levels stacked with passengers, panoramic windows stretching from top to bottom, seats that looked like airplane first class, and a promise: you wouldn't just ride Greyhound, you would ride in style. The Neoplan Skyliner, as it was called, was built in Germany. In Europe, these buses were already famous. They carried tourists across mountains and cities with comfort and elegance. Greyhound's leadership believed this was the future for America too. Why settle for the ordinary when you could have something that turned heads at every stoplight? Greyhound ordered a fleet of these massive double-deckers and branded them as the ultimate upgrade. Ads promised comfort, space, and luxury at a price ordinary people could afford. When the first Neoplan rolled into the United States, crowds stopped to stare. It looked futuristic, even intimidating. Newspapers wrote glowing headlines. Passengers lined up, curious to see what it felt like to ride so high above the highway. For a moment, it seemed like Greyhound had discovered the magic ticket. The double-decker was everything America had never seen in bus travel. People marveled at the sweeping views from the upper deck. Tourists loved the novelty. The company boasted that it had created the most advanced bus fleet in North America. But dreams have a way of hiding the cracks that lie beneath. Because even in those first months, the problems began. The buses were too tall for many American roads. Bridges that ordinary Greyhounds could pass under became dangerous traps for the double-decker. Routes had to be changed, schedules adjusted, drivers retrained. What was supposed to be a universal solution suddenly came with restrictions. And then came the mechanical issues. American highways were brutal on European machines. The Neoplans had been designed for smooth autobahns, not the punishing heat of the Southwest or the icy roads of the Midwest. Engines overheated, suspensions struggled, parts failed. Mechanics found themselves staring at German engineering that required tools and knowledge they didn't have. Every breakdown meant long delays, angry passengers, and rising costs. But the biggest challenge was safety. The buses were tall, heavy, and difficult to handle. Drivers complained about blind spots and tricky turns. In cities, low-hanging signs and tunnels were constant hazards. Accidents started making headlines, and suddenly the excitement of the futuristic Greyhound fleet turned into whispers of doubt. Yet Greyhound pushed forward. The company had invested millions, and admitting failure wasn't an option. They launched more routes with the Neoplan double-deckers. They polished the marketing campaigns. They promised that these were only teething problems, that the future was still bright. But beneath the shiny paint and glowing ads, Greyhound was bleeding money. Repairs were eating up profits. Insurance costs climbed. Mechanics were flown in from Europe at staggering expense just to keep buses running. The dream that was supposed to save Greyhound was quietly becoming a nightmare. The first year of Greyhound's Neoplan double-decker experiment was full of excitement. Passengers filled the buses, reporters wrote glowing articles, and the company proudly displayed photos of its towering fleet. From the outside, it looked like Greyhound had reinvented itself. But inside the company, panic was growing. Every day, reports landed on desks: breakdowns, accidents, delays. The engineers in charge tried to reassure management that the problems were temporary, but the truth was harder to ignore. The Neoplan wasn't designed for America's reality. Take the bridges. Across Europe, most highways had generous clearances. In the United States, it was different. On the East Coast especially, low overpasses dotted highways, some built decades earlier. A regular Greyhound cleared them without issue. But the double-decker, one wrong turn, one forgotten warning sign, and disaster waited. Several buses hit bridges, ripping open their roofs like cans of soda. Each accident wasn't just a repair bill, it was a front-page story. The public started to wonder if Greyhound's bus of the future was really safe at all. And then there was the weather. In the deserts of Arizona, the heat was merciless. Engines overheated, air conditioning units failed. Passengers sitting on the upper deck under the huge glass windows felt like they were trapped in a greenhouse. Complaints poured in. In the Midwest, winter ice made the buses difficult to handle. The higher center of gravity meant even small swerves could feel terrifying for those sitting upstairs. Drivers hated them. Many said they felt like they were steering a building instead of a bus. Blind spots were enormous, and turns in crowded cities became nightmares. Parking depots had to be redesigned because the buses were too tall to fit in garages or maintenance bays. What was sold as a futuristic marvel was turning into a logistical mess. And the cost, that was the biggest wound of all. A Neoplan Double Decker cost far more than a standard coach. Keeping them running was even worse. Spare parts had to be shipped from Germany, often with long delays. Mechanics had to be specially trained, and when they weren't available, buses sat useless in garages, bleeding money every single day. Greyhound's passengers, once excited, began to lose patience. The luxury experience promised in advertisements often fell apart in practice. Air conditioning broke, toilets failed, electrical systems shut down mid-journey. Passengers paying extra for comfort found themselves stranded for hours on highways waiting for rescue. The negative stories spread. Greyhound had gambled on a futuristic image, but instead it was becoming a punchline. Rival bus companies mocked them. Some newspapers even called the Neoplan fleet rolling disasters. But Greyhound was trapped. They had invested millions and couldn't just pull the plug. So the company doubled down. They ordered more buses, convinced that larger numbers would help normalize the fleet and push past the early troubles. Instead, the problems multiplied. It wasn't just the mechanics and accidents anymore. The government began asking questions about safety standards. Insurance companies raised premiums. Lawsuits from injured passengers started arriving. Every time a bus hit a bridge or broke down in extreme weather, Greyhound's lawyers had to defend the company. By the late 1980s, the once shiny fleet had turned into an anchor. Passengers avoided routes with double-deckers, drivers requested transfers away from them, and maintenance crews dreaded their arrival. Behind closed doors, Greyhound executives admitted the truth. The Neoplan project was spiraling out of control. But here's the twist. Greyhound didn't want to admit failure publicly. To the outside world, they still pushed glossy brochures with smiling passengers on double-deckers, promising luxury travel. But inside, board meetings were filled with arguments, panic, and desperate attempts to save face. The Neoplan Double Decker was supposed to be Greyhound's miracle. Instead, it was bleeding the company dry, draining millions, and shaking public trust. A single incident would shatter the illusion completely, sealing the Neoplan's fate and leaving Greyhound with nothing but regret.